Hey, thanks so much, Glenn. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm not sure about this like mic'd up thing, but it feels like it's working out all right. I have to say I am pretty happy with this particular invention that you see behind me, because that's one of the first things that I asked for when I came into the job is, I saw people doing these presentations and they said, hey, when you look around the world, everybody's doing this thing, whether it's football teams or CNN or whoever, so let's try to do that too. But it's great to see that at least used in the first go around here. So you got the background on me in terms of kind of where I came from and how I got there. Maybe another kind of personal note, I've got a wife and two twin daughters. They're 3.5 years old. And we moved down from Westwood in Los Angeles down to Orange County, and we're all in now. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here at Chapman. It's just a fantastic organization and a fantastic transition for me as a career. And I'm very honored to have the opportunity to speak with you, tonight on a couple of topics. So people ask me, what are you going to talk about tonight? Are you going to give the vision and the strategy and direction for the school going forward? And we have just finished a meeting with the steering committee earlier today to talk about that. I've got a meeting with the chancellor and the president a week from Friday to talk about that. We've got some exciting things that are coming out of that. I can't share a whole lot of that tonight, but I'll try to do a little bit in the Q&A if we get to that. So I'm not going to go into details on that tonight. But what I would like to do is talk about, for the number of folks in the room that are, kind of business folks or people studying business, my view on, success in business and how to be successful in business. And I'm going to take kind of an approach that goes through my prior experience in consulting to give you a sense of the types of skills that we used in consulting and how those translate into being successful, whether you're in consulting or not. So I'll talk about consulting so that you get a sense of kind of what that is if you don't know what that is. And if you're interested in that, then I can be helpful in getting you kind of down that path. But use that really as a way to talk about some of the skills that I think are really important for students at Chapman to be learning to be successful in the business world and are going forward. So I should ask, before you heard about me, did anybody, or how many people knew about the Boston Consulting Group or had heard of the name of the Boston Consulting Group? Huh, so that's pretty good. So then yeah, I guess it's clear then a lot of people know a lot about what consultants do and a lot about the industry. Another show of hands? So, all right, that's not too bad. So there are a few people in the room that it might help to at least give a little bit of perspective to demystify, what kind of goes on in the world of consulting. So I can figure out how to change these. Oh, that's not it. How about that? All right, so the talk is going to be about, a look inside the world of consulting and the implications for what consultants do that are relevant for being successful in the business community. And if you can see the quote here on the right, I heard this in various forms from many of my CEO clients through the course of my work at BCG, which included both private sector and public sector work. I'd like my people to be more like your people. How do we make that happen? And eventually they actually started stealing a lot of our people away over the course of the time that I was there too. So first let's just try to talk about the industry and give you a sense of inside the industry. It sounds like people kind of know a little bit about that, so I won't go too long on that. But it'll be helpful just to get a sense of kind of what people do know. So who can name companies that are kind of big names in the consulting industry? Just to throw a couple names out. Accenture, yeah, that's one. I think McKinsey is another one. I don't like to hear that one, but that's another good one. Back here. Bain's another big one, yeah, and Bain's kind of in the news a lot, right? So point being that, so Mitt Romney first started at BCG, actually, after he finished at the Harvard Business School, stayed for a couple of years, and then spun out into Bain, which used to be actually part of BCG, and Bill Bain left BCG to go and start Bain and Company, and took Mitt Romney with him. And then Bain Capital was very different than Bain because that's a private equity firm that was started by Bain. But anyway, so Bain is another big player in the industry. Others, so Accenture, BCG, McKinsey, Bain, who else can we talk about? Booz Allen, that's another good strong player in the industry. Ernst & Young, you know, in prior years, so there was a time that right after Enron, where a lot of the accounting firms, the big six accounting firms back then, had to kind of split off their consulting arms because the regulation said that you couldn't have both the accounting and the consulting working for the same company. So yeah, and give a sense of kind of how much these companies make in revenue annually. What do you think BCG makes in revenue annually? Yeah, a lot. Yeah, that's true. So it's a $3.5 billion firm. McKinsey's probably 2x that. Bain is probably a time and a half that. So yeah, you guys know the industry. If you've got the opportunity to kind of name a number of these folks. In my work in consulting, I typically met in proposal competition the other two on the top there. So I typically saw McKinsey and Bain, and so that's kind of why they're not two of my favorites. But I would say that I had a pretty good hit rate in winning proposals against those guys. So at least that helped. But if you think about the top firms, they make up about, and this is globally, $80 billion in the industry. And if you throw everyone else in, which includes a lot of small players as well, you're talking about $300 billion in kind of the total market. The thing about consulting is that many consultants struggle to explain what they do to their parents. What is it that you do? And I had this discussion with my mom and my dad probably 20 times, and I never really kind of got down to the layman terms that were helpful in getting them to understand kind of what it is that I did. So then they started watching TV, and they said, oh, there's a show on TV, and that's helping me to understand a little bit more about what it is that you do. Can anybody name this show? It's a Showtime show. And it's called House of Lies. Yeah. So it stars Don Cheadle. He looks a little bit like me. So people are saying, wait a minute. So he's the partner in this thing, and then you're a partner. Is this really what goes on? And my wife started to hear about it, and so we're sitting on the couch one evening. We pop on one of the episodes, and Don Cheadle's fooling around with the client, and they're using client money to pay for strip clubs, and also every 5 minutes she's turning around and hitting me in the arm. Honey, that is not what consulting is. So, can anyone offer like a one-line? What if you had to put it in one sentence? What do consultants do? Okay, that's one word. A little bit more.
You go into a company to change their processes or help them fix something that they think is going wrong.
That's great. And sometimes, one more thought back here.
They either help you save money or make money.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah. So sometimes it's going wrong, but sometimes things are going right, but they actually look to make more money or look to grow. Back in the corner here.
Find a solution to a problem.
Yeah, problem solving is a big part of what we did, what I used to do. Any other thoughts? These are really kind of hitting on, close to home on what consulting really is, which is the practice of helping organizations to improve their performance. And I think one of the keys before, and I'll get back to this toward the end, is this is something that you will be doing in your businesses, in your education and preparing for businesses, regardless of whether you're going to consulting or just going into a standard business. Helping organizations to improve their performance. And at the end of the day, that's the core of what's involved. And I've done this in for-profit businesses. I've done this in non-for-profit businesses. A lot of the firms kind of work on these, at least the top firms, on all these things that you see on the chart here, a variety of industries and a variety of functions within industries. You can probably see yourselves if you're doing an MBA and you were in a business before that. You see yourselves in some of these areas. If you're not yet quite graduated, you can probably see yourself going into some of these areas, even if you don't go into consulting. So the key is that the consulting skill set is one that is in high demand for companies, whether it's a consultant coming into the company or a company looking at its own human capital. So what I wanted to do now is just kind of take you through an example of a project and give a deeper example of kind of what consultants do, just to give you a feel for what it is on a day-to-day basis. This is an example of a client that I had. It's a specialty retailer, about a $2.5 billion player. They've grown rapidly, actually through acquisition. They bought up 3 or 4 companies over the course of a very short period of time, about 5 years. And with the last acquisition that they did, they went public, took the company public. And so once you go from being private to being public, then you start going through all the typical quarterly Wall Street analyst calls, which are torturous for management that hasn't had to live that life before. And on these analyst calls, they were starting to get the sense that Wall Street was looking for something that they had yet to do, and that was to grow organically. Wall Street was looking for year-over-year growth in same-store sales in the stores that they were operating. And not just sales growth, but also productivity and growth. So it's one thing to grow, but you also want to be able to grow profitably. And for this company, the sales growth had stagnated and the productivity had stagnated. In terms of productivity, the best way to look at it for a retailer is to look at kind of gross margin dollars per square foot. So the x-axis here is total square footage per store, and you can see the client kind of circled there. Their stores were kind of big boxes, about 60,000 square feet, and the gross margin dollars per square foot were kind of off of the world-class line. And so this is one of the kind of the big problem that they presented us with, in addition to how do we grow? How do we grow, and how do we grow profitably? So before I jump to the next slide, I want to just try to throw it out to the audience to give some thoughts that you may have on the types of things that you think that we looked at in this particular problem. And then I'll get to the answer. Everybody's walked into a retail store, right? Grocery store, clothing store. What types of things would you think a retailer would look at to try to improve their sales and their profitability? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great one.
It's probably like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the revenue is coming from your high turnover items, and other items are just sitting there collecting dust.
Sure. Yeah. So the collection of products that you have in your store, are critical. Other thoughts?
Display.
Yeah. How things are displayed, signage, and that as well. Sure. Yeah. What are the competitive threats, either immediately in your geographic area, or could be online, or some other threat that you should be aware of? Right, way in the back there.
What type of data you're getting from your point of sale system, and are you using it accurately?
Yeah, that's great. How do you mine the data, the sales data that you're getting, to come back into the types of products that you decide to stock in the store?
Along the same vein, how many customers who actually walk in actually complete the sale?
Absolutely. So are people walking in and walking out with anything in their basket, and how full are the baskets? What's the basket size? We're always going to look at that as well in terms of the dollars. Yes, sir.
Employee quality and presentation.
Sure, absolutely. Key. Talent management in retail is a critical factor. How are your sales associates dealing with people as they come into the store? Are they helpful in navigating people to the things that they need? Very critical to look at. Dominic?
Inventory levels?
Critical, absolutely critical. And inventory levels actually throughout the system, not just in the store, but throughout the supply chain.
Work in progress, the whole thing. There's high inventory levels. Go to just in time, perhaps, or something like that.
That's right. And how do you get product from the vendors to the store and get the right products in the right place at the right time? Absolutely critical. Sure, huge. Marketing, advertising, promotions, the types of things that you want to do to drive sales. Yeah. Other thoughts? All right, I think Scott?
Intramural competition, if they've acquired a lot of other brands, are they poaching in each other's territories?
Sure, yeah. Have you done something in the acquisition of all these brands that's cannibalizing sales that may have been going on before you made the purchase? Great. You guys make really good consultants. So yeah, what we did is we looked at both growth strategy and supply chain strategy. And Dominic, he added a real key component there, which is to say you can't just think about kind of the products in the store, how you're promoting them, how you're marketing them, what your assortment is. All that's very important. You also need to think about supply chain diagnostic and supply chain logistics about getting product to the store in a timely fashion and making sure that you got right product, right place at the right time. And then there's some overlap things that look at at a deeper level, at a second order level, what are your assortments as you look throughout the year? Regional, throughout the year in seasons, and also regionally in various regions of the country. So all of that became very important in coming up with an answer for what the client needed to do. And so that, is it's interesting and helpful, but still not sufficient, as it turns out. So a lot of work that I did in consulting as we looked at problems that companies had, or even public sector institutions had, such as universities, is trying to shift the paradigm of how people went about getting to success and getting to answers and getting to results, where most folks kind of thought about the problem in terms of, well, we got to figure out the what. What's the solution to the problem? And spend about 75% of the time on that, and about 25% on the how. How are we going to get it done? And what we worked to do was to kind of shift that to say, yes, we got to figure out a solution to the problem. You also have to figure out the how, and spend more time on the how than you typically have spent on that. What are you going to do in terms of change management so that whatever you put in place is sustainable over time? What are you going to do to change incentives for people throughout the process? We talked about the sales associates, which were really key to change their incentives so they started to align with the strategy. What are you going to do to get some change agents throughout the organization to make sure that this thing gets driven by people that are credible, that people believe in, and that people will follow? So the how became even more important than the what to get to success with this company. And the other critical point is that in retail, it's very important to pilot. You've got, in this case, 500 stores across the country, and to be able to give the management team the confidence to be able to go out and make all these changes in 500 stores, we had to be able to pilot and show that they could actually get the improvement from what we were talking about in those stores before they rolled it out. So what we would do in retail, we would take 12 to 15 stores that the client would kind of turn over to the consultants, and we would implement the changes that we talked about. We'd have 15 other, what we call control stores, so that you can measure the results that you get from the pilot stores, compare those to the control stores, and make sure that what you're putting in place is actually going to work. And then once you do that, you develop a very detailed plan that says, okay, those things worked, how are you going to roll that out to the chain? And so that's all about, a little bit more about kind of the how and how you get to the results. So the results on this project, they were in double digits in terms of increased revenue growth from the project. They pulled about $150 million out of their inventory to the supply chain point, which is kind of a knock-on or an artifact of being able to get faster cycle times between the vendor down to the store and actually increase the velocity of product going through the store. But it had the knock-on benefit of pulling out about $150 million of assets that they didn't have to carry on the books anymore. So that's a sense of what a detailed project looks like inside of a consulting game. I want to talk a bit about the roles inside of a consulting organization in case people do have some interest in that, and also transition from that to the types of things that help consultants be successful, and why those things are important for people that are learning business and trying to get out there in the future. So this is kind of the consulting pyramid, if you will, and it's an up route system where people come in the front end of it, and every 2 years you go through a promotion cycle. And if you make the promotion, then you stay. You don't make the promotion, then you go and you go do another job. And so you end up with a fair number of the size of the arrows is not the size of the number of people in those arrows. A fair number of people at the bottom of the pyramid, and a small number of partners at the top, and folks working from the bottom to get to the top. And there's a fair number of attrition. I started in my class in Los Angeles with 11 people in my class, and I was one of 11 by the time we got to partner. And part of that is not just attrition through having people leave because they didn't make the promotions. Half of that is attrition because, as I said before, the clients are always stealing the younger people after they figure out kind of the capabilities and the skills that they bring into the game. So just to give you a sense, the associate is the undergraduate position, so people that come out of undergrad come into a company like BCG or McKinsey as an associate. I think McKinsey calls them analysts. Stay for 2 years. You either get promoted to consultant, you can do that, and or go off to get a business degree and then come back. People come into consultant in the entry level as an MBA or a PhD or a JD, and then you move on to project leader and principal. Those are the folks that run the day-to-day projects. So they have groups of teams that are doing the analysis. So the associates and the consultants are basically gathering the data and the information, doing the analysis to present the insights. The project leaders and the principals are kind of keeping the trains on time. The project leaders run smaller projects, principals run larger projects, and the partner sits back and drinks coffee. So the partner is responsible largely for business development. And so that's a big part of the job. In the company that I came from, you actually had to do business development and run projects. And so we would go and do proposals and sell projects to clients, but then also execute those projects. So I spent typically a day or two on the ground meeting with the CEO each week, meeting with the senior management team. I would be the one that kind of went and did the board presentations when we had to go to the board to present what the findings were. And then overall held responsibility for the success of the engagement. So I was kind of the neck to choke if things weren't going well. And I'm the one that got yelled at when things didn't go well. Through the course of the project. Now, we always got to the right answer at the end. So a quick question. How much, I'm just talking about these first two levels, how much do you think an entry-level associate coming out of undergrad makes in a company like this? What would you guess?
40 to 60.
A little higher.
64.
It's about 75 plus $5,000 signing bonus. It's about 80. Yeah. What about consulting? So they're at about 140 with a $20,000 signing bonus. So these are pretty interesting jobs to take a look at if you're still kind of thinking about what you might want to go into and you're still here at Chapman. The point being, kind of connect with me if you think this is something you're interested in, and I kind of help you through how to think about it. So that's kind of the profile of the type of people that you see in consulting. I wanted to turn my attention now to the types of skills that people were buying when they bought our teams to come in and do the projects, and the types of skills that they were stealing away when they stole away the young people to go work for their companies. The first is, and I would encourage you to think, if you're still in school, how do I make sure that I get this in what I'm learning so that I can be successful in any job, consulting or not, when I go out into the marketplace? The first is, quantitative analytic capability. The proficiency with the kind of typical analytic tools of business. You need to be strong in critical reasoning and problem solving, and being able to kind of take a problem, break it down into its component parts, work on these individual component parts to come up with answers and insights. You have to be more and more comfortable with unclear, ambiguous situations and problems. Making decisions in business is messy, and a lot of people that have been in it can tell you the same. And you don't always have complete data to get to answers that you'd like to get to. You got to find a way to kind of fill in the data gaps that you don't have, and still have the confidence to develop a strong story, a compelling story that can still get you to answers. You need to be up to speed on kind of recent business issues and macro trends in the industries that you're working in. And you need to be able to employ practical and useful knowledge. You need to be professionally mature. That means dressing the right way, talking the right way, not running into the wrong offices at the wrong time. Be savvy about kind of the environment that you're in. And for me, I always tell people that come into to a new job, make sure that you start to think very early on about your own personal brand. How do you want to present yourself? How do you want to be known in that organization? And largely you want to be known as a self-starter, someone that's professional in that organization, and someone that's a strong communicator. And that's both oral and written communications. If you can put this package together, you can be successful in consulting, you can be successful in any business job that you decide to go to.